All right, today I wanted to talk about Levan Saganishvili's world record curl, and it is, I believe it was 396 pounds, somewhere right around there, right around the 400-pound mark. And here we have Levan going for this. You can see three plates taped on here, and I believe we got three 20-kilo plates and then one 15-kilo plates. And then whatever the bar weighs, maybe there's some more plates under the tape there. It's hard to see. Levan is doing this kind of narrow grip, a little bit more inside the body. And we're going to see that Levan lifts that really easily. 400-pound curl, really not that bad. Now, people are going to talk about how Levan is leaning here and he's cheating, whatever. The thing about a curl is once you're lifting 400 pounds, it's just not physically possible to do it without leaning because you're just going to lean forward and the weight as you curl the weight around, it's just going to cause your body to fall forward because of the balance of it. So you literally have to lean back like this. But still, this is just really not that difficult, really not that difficult. I think he has more. Maybe he has more like 450. That was a very fast rep. And the idea that you're curling in each arm, he's curling 200 pounds. This is just a ridiculous level that the sport has reached at this point. I would say that for an active elbow flexion driven lift, this is by far the most impressive lift I've ever seen from any arm wrestler. Okay, so I think that this is way better than Denis Saplenkov's strict curl, any of the stuff that he's done, because we've seen Denis curl around this much too, but Levan's was so much easier, so much easier. I know that people will say that this narrow grip is easier, but I would also say that Levan controlled this weight significantly more than Denis does. Levan has a huge lean, but he's not doing a clean and jerk. He's not like throwing the weight up and ducking under it. He's just doing a lean. So to me, that's about as clean as you could get it for a 400-pound curl, considering you have to lean back so far. And I would go as far as to say, I think that this right here, this kind of general strength is the reason that Levan is number one in the world. This is why he is so good. There's a lot of things that matter in arm wrestling, but to me, your ability to prevent your fist, so like right here, Levan's ability to prevent his fist from drifting away from his face or from his chin, to me, that is probably overall the most important pressure in arm wrestling. If you have a ton of that, you can always top roll somebody. Even if you lose your wrist a little bit, even if you lose some pressures you would like to have, you can still beat someone with only that pressure. It's a little bit of back pressure and internal rotation combination. Now, this lift right here is predominantly back pressure driven. It's elbow flexor, so I am cheating a little bit because Levan also obviously has a lot of side pressure. And you are going to have some side pressure to actually pin your opponent. But just to generate up pressure in a match, to take height from your opponents, and then to be able to move backward while not having that arm angle open is so important. I think if you look at Levan versus Devin Larratt, for example, you'll see that Levan is losing his wrist a little bit, but it doesn't really matter because he has so much of this pressure. Sure, Devin cracks his wrist slightly, but Devin was not close to beating Levan because the elbow flexor strength gap was so immense. You can see Levan does not lose any angle whatsoever in this elbow flexor. Levan stays, like in that match, he stays maybe right about here the whole time, and he just takes Devin straight to the pin pad, and he opens Devin's elbow flexor angle. Generally in arm wrestling, the person who their elbow flexor angle is getting opened, they're probably in a bad place. That's not always the case. There, you do have things like the King's move and whatever, but most of the time, the person who keeps the tighter elbow flexor angle. They're going to be the person who can climb and generate height in the match and open the other one's elbow flexor. So to me, this is the most important thing, and I think that that's why Levan is number one. Now, this is interesting because right behind Levan, we have Irakli Zirakashvili, who is also someone who is known for having super strong biceps, super strong elbow flexor, but then he loses to Todd Hutchings, who's kind of the main proponent, the main advocate that biceps don't matter in arm wrestling. He beats Irakli with side pressure and that kind of lat dragging pressure, even though his elbow flexor angle does open up. So this is really, really interesting to me to see. Maybe it's because it's the super heavyweight class. I don't know what the difference is there. I think one thing to consider as well is that Todd Hutchings has an incredibly short forearm. So he has the ability to attack Irakli's bicep with lat drag to a higher degree than most people do because they'll just run out of pad to drag. But in general, I do think that biceps or static elbow flexor strength, however you're going to articulate it. But like I said, the ability to not allow your fist to drift away from your face, I do think that that is probably overall the most important pressure. But like I said, it is funny because Todd Hutchings seems to be kind of showing that maybe that's not the case. So let me know what you guys think about that, because I do find that very interesting that Todd is able to do so well against Irakli. But my case in general would be that that's probably an exception. I don't think that that is the rule of thumb. I think that Todd has an incredibly short forearm that allows him to drag and do things that most people can't. That incredibly short forearm also allows him to have such a high degree of side pressure. I don't think that, for example, Irakli could use the same style that Todd Hutchings does. I don't think that Levan or someone like Vitaly Laletin or Devin Larratt, I don't think any of those people can use that same style that Todd Hutchings does. So I think if you have a super short forearm, potentially lat drag and side pressure, maybe that is the most important thing. You can let your hand go. You can drag back to the back of the pad and just go sideways, and you can go right through people's biceps just like Todd Hutchings does. But I think that if you are a little bit taller, maybe you're starting to approach more like 6 feet or higher, I don't see that strategy working. And in that case, I do think that this lift Levan is doing, and this isn't going to directly translate, obviously, to the table. This is kind of the building blocks of his back pressure. This is almost more of an accessory to his back pressure. But I do think that back pressure in general, up pressure, like I said, not allowing your fist to drift away from your face. I think for most people who are a little bit taller, which is most of the super heavyweights, this is the most important lift you can do in the world, or the most important pressure you can have. That general back pressure, up pressure, elbow flexor, predominantly driven pressure with a little bit of internal rotation. I think if you have a ton of that, you're going to do super, super well. I think we see that with Levan, with Hermes, with Georgi Tsvetkov. Even Devin has a ton of it. Even though he trains it through pronation, he still has a huge amount of that. But yeah, let me know what you guys think about this. I think that this lift is just totally insane. Way more impressive than Dennis, way more impressive than any other curl I've ever seen. Like I said, I think the form is phenomenal. You just have to lean back with this much weight. There's no way around this. But he didn't power clean it. He really did actually curl this weight. So super, super impressed by Levan. I think he's probably got like 450, certainly more than what he did there. And man, I would love to see Levan test his back pressure, because you have to wonder, he's actively curling this weight. This is 400. What does he have on static back pressure? Does he have 100 kilo? Does he have 110 kilo on just static back pressure? I think that would be super, super interesting to test. So let me know what you guys think about this. Super impressed by this. To me, this is why Levan is number one in the world. Not the only reason, of course, but perhaps the biggest reason. All right. Thank you guys so much for watching. I'll talk to you later.